And we're live.
Whew.
What's up, Katie?
Did you have an extra large coffee before?
I wish. I literally probably needed another coffee this afternoon, but here we are with Bill and his Allbirds again.
He loves his Allbirds.
They're not. They're fake Yeezys.
Russ has like Allbird-esque.
I am wearing Allbirds.
They are Allbirds.
These are the new waterproof ones.
Ah, see?
But they're already covered with salt and gook from the winter here in New England, so...
Can we have a shoe off here, guys? Katie just introduced Russ. Russ is our special guest today.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Russ is the Chief Experience Officer at PayFactors.
Mm-hmm.
We're here to talk about reporting and communicating value through data insights today. We've done a couple of things on this recently, and we've talked about this in recent webinars, recent talks. But I thought it would be an interesting conversation today because one of the things we continually see in compensation is that in order to really be strategic or be perceived as that way in the organization, to show the value that you're adding, you kind of have to flip the script a bit. You kind of have to think about approaching it from a different angle and really showcase the results of what you're doing by mapping to different things, if that makes sense. We'll get more into detail on this, but throwing out the high level now. When you think about compensation, it's kind of at the center of profit, risk, and growth, right? Whereas you talk about this a lot.
Oh, yeah. I think one of the things that I think we need to help, we as compensation professionals and compensation evangelists need to help business leaders understand is that comp strategy is essential to business strategy, as you mentioned, Sean. When you think about profit, your largest single expense is probably your salaries. When you think about risk, one of the most misunderstood and misplanned for risk is loss of top talent. And when you think about growth, how can you possibly plan growth strategies if you don't understand what it's going to cost to move in a new region or a new sector? And so a lot of companies, you'd think they would understand this by now, but one of the things we talked about at CompCon is a study that recently happened last fall with our friends at Robert Half. And they did a study and they did research amongst a couple thousand employees, and they said in this current economy, 43% of employees they surveyed will be looking for a new job in the next 12 months. And the number one reason they gave was higher pay. And you'd think most leaders would understand this, but in the same survey, they asked business leaders, hey, what are your thoughts on this? What are you guys doing? And they said, well, our number one objective is retention, which ties into that, business strategy risk thing I mentioned. But when they asked, what are you doing about retention? Compensation was fourth after things like better communication, improving recognition programs, more training and development. So there's really a big disconnect between what people's employees are actually doing and thinking about and what business leaders think they need to do to solve the problem. And I think the most interesting thing about this study was the title it got in Fortune magazine when they published it last September, which was, if you want a higher paying job, the time to quit is now. So if you're not really thinking about compensation as a center to how you plan your business strategy, you're going to be in trouble.
So I want to tackle that from a couple of angles, but Bill, let me ask you something. Do you think it's a canard to say, so 43% of people are looking for a new job for higher pay? Was that the quote?
Yeah.
Aren't we all looking for a new job for higher pay? Like, in other words, like if somebody would come down tomorrow and be like, hey, here's an extra $500,000 to go work somewhere else, wouldn't you take it?
I'm busy.
Are you busy? You're not gonna do it right away?
Well, it's rounding errors for Katie.
Kind of loyalty we appreciate around here.
I've got other things going on.
But it's sort of like that, the old adage, is everything's for sale. The question is, what's the price?
Sure.
Everybody, is looking for a new job if there's a lot of money on the table to change. We have an interesting use case that came up just last week with one of our clients who was looking at how much average new person in a given job gets paid versus the median of the market. The real point was how do new hires get paid versus ongoing, and it varies by job, but sort of the no disparagement intended, but bread and butter jobs, there's a 5% premium to get a new hire in the door. Mm-hmm. And then sort of the hot jobs, whatever you want, like somewhere between like 12 and 20% premium. But to me, the interesting part was the 5%, meaning people need an enticement to move. So,
right.
If I offer somebody a job that's getting paying the same as what they're getting paid now, it's unlikely or much less likely that they're going to switch.
It's cost of change.
Right.
It's just not worth it to you.
Right. And what's the barrier? What's the, what's the sort of minimum for any given job?
What's the motivator to actually make somebody jump?
Right. And it's not, a 2% raise isn't enough. in most cases.
Right. But is this where, the other thing you said, Russ, I'm going to forget the exact quote, but you said they're looking to invest more in recognition programs. Right, what else was there?
Better communication was number one.
Yep.
Improving recognition programs are number two, and more training and development number three, and then looking at their compensation, enhancing compensation was fourth.
So why do we think that is? Why does it fall that far behind? Is it when you're looking to keep employees, you think more about kind of the total rewards package or the total culture and package aspect of it? When you're looking to hire new people, you give them a bump, right? Is there a contrast there that we're looking at, that when your internal comp's not as perceived as not as valuable and we need to do a better job of that versus when you're external?
I don't have any insights into what was underlying that. My guess is one cause is, or one part of the problem is people, comp's not free.
It kind of compounds typically.
A communication plan is free and controlled by HR, say.
True.
And rewards and recognition, again, not free, but are less expensive.
One time.
But how can you strategically think that that's going to make a big enough impact? If you're underpaying your employees.
But does this fall into total rewards? Is that why we're looking at more future-looking like total reward statements like, oh, you might make 5 or 10% more there, but we're giving you a little bit for your 401k, and you get these recognition bonuses, and right? Is that kind of what this falls into?
I think that's part of it, but I think in reality it's a short-term mindset. I'm pointing at Katie for those that are just listening to us, not here.
They're not
in the
here.
room
They
with
can't
us.
watch.
You can watch the live stream on Bill's phone.
And then it's
Creepy.
I think it's two things. I think for years people have been told that compensation and employee engagement are decoupled. And so there's these other magical ways you can retain your employees, without looking at compensation. The second part is a lot of organizations have really strict compensation increase policies.
True.
That plus
Correct.
the cost
Right.
makes it really hard to move. And I think
But you
that's-
can easily implement
but you
recognition
can go
or
ahead and give
communication.
everybody like a free gym membership.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
That's much easier. And so I think that combined with the current market where unemployment's so low today that you can't hire a person without taking them from somewhere else. There's no line of people applying to your organization anymore. So you have to entice them, or you have to promote internally. And the challenge with promoting internally, I think another delta between when you hire someone externally and you pay them 5% more versus internally is because of pay compression, right? You can promote somebody up and pay them less for now, but if you never come back and get them to market,
Right.
you're just training someone to leave your organization 2 or 3 years from now.
Correct.
Right? And so comp is part of all of this, and if you don't have an approach for that and how you deal
Right.
with that, and you're just mortgaging your future by doing that today.
right. And coming back to Katie's point, you're not being strategic.
Right.
If you're just looking at one or two dimensions, particularly the easier ones. And I'd add on, I think this is perhaps a little bit too cynical, but I think a lot of shocking. A lot of organizations will do surveys of their employees, and you sort of get the feedback you ask for, and that
Right.
they ask, do you want more communication? And everybody's like, yes, and therefore that goes to the top of the list. But that doesn't mean that that's going to keep people, and it's just the thing.
Yeah, like
you measure.
I don't care if a company has an amazing internal communications approach if they're paying me garbage, like.
Right.
But if you understand why they're paying you garbage, still no?
No,
No.
nope.
No, but I think that's right. It's that people always ask for more communication, but then the next follow-up to that is I'm getting too many emails.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I want more communication, but do it in a way that I like when I like it.
Or I want more communication about how you're going to give me more money. Like,
Yes. Drop me those emails that are giving me a raise all
Yes.
the time. But no, I think you're hitting on what's probably right there, Russ. So let's talk about what does it mean to actually start to think about or view compensation more strategically. And one of the things we talked about is like using reporting and insights to help communicate that, to facilitate the sharing of that information and helping people better understand the value of compensation across an organization, right?
Yeah. And I think there's two things we think about, and our clients tell us this all the time. To get strategic, it really does require good data insights. The first and most obvious thing is most comp professionals simply don't have time in their normal day to be strategic and to be proactive and take the time it takes to talk to business leaders, talk to managers, and help them understand some of the challenges we just talked about. So the first thing you need to have is a great way to really understand and communicate out your data and get those fast responses that executives and managers are always asking you for. That report you ran from last year, and they need it again tomorrow. They need it updated. And if those kinds of things take you, a half a day per request or more, you're never going to get out from under just the to-do list, right? And be able to be strategic. So your first step towards trying to really contribute to compensation to business strategy is really, how do I make these sort of ad hoc, repeatable tasks? How do I make them just fast and simple so I can move on to the more impactful things I could be doing?
Push the button.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's almost like, in other worlds, the Salesforce dashboard or whatever else, or the Workday dashboard. But what you're saying there, though, I think is important in the sense that figure out how to automate it as much as possible, but still do those things, because there's two key roles to that, right? One is just communicating out what you're working on and why, or what people ask for, and more specifically, if people are asking for that, fulfilling on that request regularly helps to build trust around it.
That's right.
It starts to help them understand the value of compensation, starts to showcase to them what you're working on and what the how that comes to life, and it builds that mutual trust and respect.
Yeah, you do really want to be the center of the source of truth around data related to compensation. Those requests coming to you are a good thing. They just can't be so hard for you to fill. You have to get systems and processes in place that you can respond quickly.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then once you're doing that, though, I think one of the keys is you can't just have those spit out. You do, I would think, have to help communicate the value of them to not only the individuals asking for it, but the broader organization, right?
That's right. I think you have to build a strategy in place that you can communicate out to your organization. I think part of that strategy is really having an extremely high confidence in your data, so you can actually expose the data, expose the logic behind the data, really show the source of your data. All strategic functions in a business are driven by data-driven decision making, and they share the data they use to drive the decisions. So if you're not confident in your compensation data, if you are doing a lot of guesstimation and estimation, then you're going to go to a place where you're not comfortable sharing that information, and you're going to get second guessed. If you can come to the table and say, look, here's what we need to do, here's the data that's driving it, here's where I got the data from, and it's a very quality source, you're going to have a much better conversation.
Yeah, we've kind of joked before on different webinars that if you're saying, well, this data was 2 years old, and I picked a survey that I just personally like best, and I'm going to guess the market's moved by 6% in those 2 years. And we didn't have the exact match for that, so I blended a few jobs. Right? Like, that doesn't instill confidence. Now, is that a better step if you can at least express to people why that is the case, why that is the art of compensation that you take? That's a good step in the right direction. Heck of a lot easier, though, if you can be more authoritative behind that, right? Answer that with more authority.
Exactly.
So write data sources in the spot that you're confident in. Make sure that they're matching to your jobs well. They're tracking the market as efficiently, as quickly as possible.
And I would add to it. Russ sort of alluded to this, and Sean's question is getting at the same point.
You're giving me more credit than I'm worth.
True, but anyway, it's your podcast. But the
our podcast, Bill.
Oh, whatever.
You're the star. Get to your question.
You're gonna make me forget my point. Is that I think HR people, comp people in particular, we tend to love being in the weeds and focusing on the data. But there's sort of this hierarchy, and you gotta. It's going to be a weird image, but you poke your head above the weeds, and go from data to information to knowledge, and that's how you become more strategic. Is that your boss's boss doesn't want to look at a 20-page spreadsheet with 10 tabs. What they want is the distilled thoughts, the important points, the high level. And Sean, you did actually refer to this like the Salesforce dashboard. It's not getting into every individual deal of every individual sales rep. It's the roll up. It's that's the information level.
Are we on track to hit our number or not? And is everything pushing towards that or not?
Right. And then the knowledge level is, what does this mean, and where is this going to take our business, or where are we going to run into trouble because of this?
Right. Yeah, it'd be similar for comp, right? I would think. Do we start to see the market moving away from some roles one way or the other, right? Is the market starting to outpace some of the roles that we have? That would be kind of important to know, at least at the line manager level. Is our philosophy going to have us run into trouble later this year because we're just going to give everybody 3% raises, but the market's moving by 10? Are there key roles that we need to pay attention to that are emerging rapidly and we don't have good data for? Right, so we need to be close in touch with those kind of things. Are pretty important, I would think.
Right, and that's where your having good, meaningful conversations about the strategy and about the focus of the business.
Which brings us, Bill,
Uh-oh.
being a business ally then.
Okay.
I mean, if you can do those two things well,
Right.
well, that Russ was just talking about, right? If you're thinking in a different way about compensation, if you're being more communicative about it, if you're showcasing your results and you're more certain in those results, and you take a different view of the value of compensation than we traditionally have, well, that allows you to align better, right?
I think that's right. And I think in order to really, for the business to see you as an ally, you have to take, and I think Bill made the point too, where the level of detail that most comp analysts live at, you need to level it up one. You need to understand how the comp data that now you have confidence in and you can explain the sourcing on and you can give good confidence in, how does that line into metrics that leadership cares about, the key KPIs for your organization? If there are trending jobs that you're going to, let's say you're going to do a bunch of hiring next year and you see that there's a lot of market shift happening in those particular positions and you've got a budget 10% more than you planned, getting that in early and talk about cost of growth through leadership, what it's going to take to move into that market. Maybe you don't know that Atlanta's growing 20% faster than the rest of the country, for example. Having that data in front of you, that turns you into a business ally. That changes the conversation from, oh, comp is a back office expense to, wow, comp is really a strategic partner in the business.
I mean, yeah, I think those are the key to this, right? Is if we take a slightly different view and to your point that you were just making, level up one notch, right? Start to think about what really matters to our boss's boss or the departmental line managers, and how do we help align with them, help them understand the value of compensation and what it can do, but also help deliver things that can help them do their jobs more easily. If a department's looking to grow this year, for example, well, how are they going to do that without knowing what the market is to hire the right people? And then the question, well, what about the people that are already there, right? What about the people in those roles? Is that going to cause any issues if we're, to your point that we were making earlier, Bill, bring in new people that are making 5% more if they're doing the same job, right? We have to account for that too. And this doesn't even start to tackle some of the bigger issues that businesses care about right now, which the fair pay, right? Making sure that we're doing that as well as we possibly can, especially in areas where it's law. Those are some of the more strategic roles that compensation can play now and really have an impact on a business. It just requires breaking out of the traditional mold, the reactiveness that we've always been accustomed to, I guess.
Yeah, and we're not just here to crunch numbers. Look, it's necessary, but that's not
Doesn't end
sufficient
there.
to do the job, right?
It
You
is
need
what's
do a
needed
little
to
bit.
show the results.
It's
Right.
interpreting the numbers
Right.
and applying them to
Yep.
the strategy.
Right, and
That's hard.
right, and as I think we've said numerous times here before, like that is 80% of our time, and the 20% is what to do with it, and it should be the other way around.
Right.
You should get that data, but apply the Russ rule. You should be confident that your data is good and accurate and on point, and then take that and then spend the majority of your time using that data to help the organization improve, to grow, to be strategic.
Yeah, if you're able to set up, like we were talking about, a dashboard or regular reporting and insights that just happen, right? You set them up well, they're just happening, they're running in the background. That takes away a lot of that time, right? The data is always being refreshed. You always have the most up-to-date stuff in there. You're having it track to, whatever you're looking to see, market movements, hot jobs, what's happening in certain geographic areas, Russ, as you cited. Like, whatever it is that you want to see, departmental stuff, at least it's all there, and then you can make the decisions from there. You can start to interpolate what it means.
Yeah, I mean, imagine just thinking about simple things like where are we losing people? Like what department, what geographic part of the country, what roles, and then where are we? Nobody likes to talk about these things. Where are we keeping people more than we should? In other words, hint, hint. Where are we overpaying so that people aren't willing to leave because we're paying them too much, even though perhaps they should. They're a bad fit, or
where is there not turnover?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that is actually. I mean, perhaps
Zero
not as
turnover is
big a
actually not
problem,
good. Right.
but it is a problem. Because if you want to be lean and mean, you want to be the best, the strongest. You have to keep an eye on both ends of the performance curve.
Bill always says this stuff to me, Russ, when he's looking at me when he says it. He's like, where is there not turnover? And he gives me this look. And he does this all the time.
I don't know what that means.
Me neither.
Me neither.
But it causes me to sleep less well at night. I would like to sleep well, Bill, for once.
Sorry.
But I think that's right? You can start to look at both sides of that. It just depends, to your point, what is it that you want to measure? What do you want to look at? And if you set that up so that it's happening for you, then it's up to you to figure out what the results mean and how to communicate and convey them out to the rest of the organization. But it puts you in that better, more strategic, more thoughtful spot than just, I have to go and participate in the survey again. Oh, I got to map my jobs again. Oh, I got to get the surveys back and get them into the system, right? It's not that. It's almost the opposite of that, because that stuff should just be happening. We can use technology now. We've done previous podcasts on this. We can use technology now to help us with that.
And there's a huge amount of power in knowing the answer before a question is asked. And in fact, even raising it as a point of discussion. And that we're losing people in this part of our business. And you bring that up, and now people are going to have a deep and meaningful conversation about what are we doing wrong, or what could we be doing so that we are better positioned for what our company's real goals are. And the company's real goals are never about making sure that our comp ratio is whatever it says in our comp philosophy.
Right. No, you're going to have more interesting conversations around why are people turning around that department? Why are people not turning in the other departments?
Right.
Yeah, those kinds of conversations are definitely something that executives would care about.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that gets you more attention, and that makes
Seat
you
at the table.
An ally, a partner.
The other thing, to your point, Bill,
A comp strategist.
Exactly.
Comp strategist.
The other thing that you get when you start to map compensation metrics to business metrics is you can start seeing what the impact is and start figuring out ROI for initiatives, right?
Yeah.
So as soon as you start talking about ROI, return on investment, you're now talking about a place where you can say, well, yes, it's going to cost budget to target these specific jobs to move them at market or above market because they're extremely competitive, but the ROI on the retention increase there is X, and that's where you really want to be thinking. If you're having those conversations, you're doing it right.
You've won.
If you know it's going to be a 21%. 21% of somebody's salary to replace them, which is, I think, one of the numbers that floats around out there for certain jobs. Does it save you more to keep that person on and give them a little bit of a bump, right? As opposed to turning and turning and turning. Now, if you bake turning and turning into your model, like some businesses do, then you're probably fine.
Right.
Just depends what your strategy is.
There's some places you can't do that. If you're a software company and engineers are your
100%.
bread and butter, and you know if your competition gets 10% ahead of you, you're going to lose 20% of your engineers. That's an easy ROI sell, right?
Right.
So there are things like there are a lot of people in those situations, and then that's just software. It's when Amazon moves in and starts. We talked about this before, right? Starts paying $15 an hour, and all of a sudden all your hourly employees are leaving. That's a problem.
Yeah, that can affect retail shops. That can affect
That's everybody.
anything, right? Any organization that's at or about that minimum wage level, that can affect.
Everybody on Main Street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at you, Bill,
It's crazy.
with your quips.
Quips.
You wanna know? Oh, and anybody that
Give him a
that
pair of
does-
Yeezys and he's
Starts to get philosophical. with
Yeah.
talking about my shoes. And anybody that anybody that's doing these things, even considering them, is way ahead of their competition,
True.
which gives them an advantage. And so, way to go, all you Comp and Coffee listeners, because now you're armed and potentially dangerous.
armed and caffeinated.
That's right. Armed and caffeinated.
All right. Well, I hope this has been a productive conversation today. It's our goal to help you just think a little bit differently about it. Think about how to measure some of this stuff. We'll probably be back in the future. We've been doing a lot recently. We just did a webinar around how to measure compensation and the value of it. Shoot us an email at coffee@payfactors.com if you want a link to that. But we'll probably be back soon with more on that. And we're always interested in everybody's thoughts on it. Yeah, if you have any thoughts on this show, on this specific episode, leave them in the feedback or email us at coffee@payfactors.com. If you want a glossy of Bill, you could probably get that just by emailing us. If you want it signed, you have to include a tip. It's just the way he works. He does accept Bitcoin.
Wrong.
Wow.
Interesting, because of it's not Allbirds, it's Yeezy, sorry. Also, Russ, if you want to hear more about what Russ has been talking about today, we actually have a link to. You did a presentation on this
Yep.
topic that we could share.
Yep, we'll share that in the notes.
This was one of our keynotes at CompCon 2019 was Russ. So
Russ will also be in Phoenix next week.
Yes.
If you'd like to catch up with him at the
Total Awards. If you're there, say hi.
Arizona Total Awards.
Yep. Yep.
All right, thanks everybody. We'll see you soon.
Thanks.
bye.